The movie begins with a guy called Joel, who has spent the week tormented by a deity called the Smile. To remove his curse, he stops by the house of a drug dealer to pass it on to them. He sees one of the drug dealers stopping by and immediately points his gun at him and walks him into his house. In front of the dealer's brother, Joel starts stabbing the dealer to death. The dealer's brother tries to shoot him, making Joel to send a bullet to his heart. Seeing that the dealer's brother is going to die, Joe begins to freak out because he needed a witness who should have passed the curse to the others. The other drugs associate shows up, and just as they see Joel in their apartment, they begin to chase him. Joel escapes through the back door of the house, and just as he runs into the road, he gets struck by a car and his bloody remains dragged across the pavement resemble a smile. We are introduced to a pop superstar, Sky Riley, who attended an interview which is hosted by Drew Barrymore. We find out that while Sky's career has been highly successful, she has a history of substance and alcohol abuse and is still recovering mentally from a car accident that she was in which killed her boyfriend, actor Paul Hudson. Sky is managed by her mother Elizabeth and has also been estranged from her best friend Gemma since the incident. Sky believes the tour she is about to attend will give her the perfect comeback she needs. She does rehearsals for the upcoming tour, but she keeps falling to the ground due to her back pain from the accident. Just as Elizabeth and Joshua drive Sky home, she sends a text to a guy named Lewis so she can come buy drugs concerning her back pain. Lewis tells her to come to his apartment. After her mother drops her home, she changes her dress and heads immediately to Lewis' house. When Sky enters his apartment, Lewis grabs her and holds a sword to her throat. He freaks out and says he didn't recall sending Sky a message, while trying to explain that something weird has been following him. Lewis goes inside his room to get the drugs for Sky, but after some minutes, he emerges from the room screaming in a panic, begging an invincible force to spare his life while Sky watches in confusion. The invincible force suddenly possesses him and a creepy smile forms on Lewis's face before he grabs a weight plate and smashes his face 3 times until the skin is hanging off his jaw. Sky throws up after witnessing this terrifying incident and decided to call 911, but suddenly changes her mind after she realizes the trouble she would get into being in a drug dealer's house. Sky continues to prepare for her tour while trying to forget the scary thing she had witnessed, but she begins to experience strange things happening around her. While she lays on her bed in the dark, she sees the corpse of Lewis standing in front of her, but whenever she turns on the light, she sees nothing. The next morning as she does makeup, she still sees the corpse of Lewis in a mirror, but when she looks around there is no trace of him. Sky later attends a meet and greet with fans, where fans express how they love her. She was able to sign a lot of autographs that day and took pictures with different fans. One strange fan called Alfredo meets Sky for a photo, but starts saying scary things to her like he would make her really happy. He suddenly grabs her, saying she's beautiful and wants to take her skin, but the security shows up and has him removed. Sky goes to take a little break and takes a breather concerning what had just happened. As she resumes with taking pictures with the fans, a young girl who shows up for an autograph begins to give her a creepy smile. She also gets an anonymous message from someone asking if she was at Lewis's house. Due to all these that has been happening, Sky decided to take out her pride and sends a voice note to her old friend called Gemma. Her and Gemma were once best friends but don't use to talk anymore due to their fight. After seeing Sky text message, Gemma calls her later that night and Sky starts to apologize to Gemma for everything and appeals she should come over to her house since she has no one else to talk to. Gemma agrees to her request and says she will be at her house in 45 minutes. While waiting for Gemma to come over, Sky plays her piano and sings a song, but she gets startled after a glass break in her house. She hears the sound of someone singing, and as she moves around her apartment to know where it's coming from, she finds a t-shirt that she had signed for Alfredo, then finds what looks like his clothes, including his skid-marked underwear, all over the floor. She sees a strange entity standing at the end of the dark hallway naked before he chases Sky. She runs to the door and is greeted by Gemma, whom she earlier called in an attempt to reconcile. Gemma sees Sky holding an object and moving around her house in panic. She picked up an object thinking someone must have broken into her house. Seeing no one at her house, Gemma becomes so confused on what's wrong with Sky. Sky hugs Gemma and asks how she got here so fast, but Gemma was like she had received the call from her like an hour ago. Sky immediately goes to consume a full bottle of water. The therapist from her recovery program has suggested to her that whenever she's overwhelmed by the urge to use drugs or get drunk that she should stop whatever she's doing and get a full glass of water. Sky then explains the incident that she witnessed at Lewis' house. How Lewis was scared of something and started screaming and freaking out before smashing his face with a gym medal. She considers about telling the police about this, but Gemma tells her she should not because it will ruin her life forever. According to Sky wishes, Gemma agrees to stay the night with her. While trying to sleep, Sky talks to Gemma about the darkness she feels in herself even before the car accident, but to her surprise, Gemma replied that all these happened to her because she's a horrible person. Sky then sees the entity as Gemma smiling at her before making a car honking noise. Sky wakes up in the morning and finds Gemma making breakfast. Sky realizes that she's late for the tour and asks Gemma to come watch her, but it turns out that she has made plans with her friends. Just as Sky and her dancers are rehearsing for the tour, an image of Paul flashes before Sky and causes her to fall. She screams in fear after seeing her leg broken, but in few seconds, she realizes it wasn't real. Furiously, she blames one of the dancers of throwing her off her balance, but the person in charge of the rehearsals who had been watching them tells her that he never saw any of the dancers out of place. She later goes to her room and finds the whole place in a mess. She blames her assistant Joshua for trashing her room, but her mom Elizabeth tells Sky that Joshua was with her all day. Elizabeth asks her if she is using drugs again because she has been acting strange lately. Elizabeth says she should put herself together as the tour is fast approaching, but Sky wants to cancel it because in her current condition she might embarrass herself in front of hundreds of people. Her mom disagrees and is hesitant that she must perform on the tour. Sky later goes to a charity event per Darius' invitation since he is hosting, which she reluctantly agrees. While reading from the teleprompter, it appears to stall, so she improvises with a little speech that ends up becoming a rant about her personal life and struggles. The teleprompter goes back to normal until it makes Sky read Paul's name out loud, surprising the audience and making her see Paul smiling and walking up to her. Sky yells at Paul to stop smiling before she snaps back to reality. When an older lady tries to approach her with help, a bloody Paul reappears to hold Sky, leading her to accidentally push the woman off the stage and onto a table, to the horror of everyone else. Sky, out of panic, runs out of the stage. Back at her apartment, Sky continues getting messages from the unknown number. They say they know it's Sky, and they know what she has been seeing and experiencing. They say she's not imagining things, that everything she has been seeing is real. They also send Sky a video that Lewis made on his phone where he talks about seeing the deity. The unknown person asks Sky to meet him at a bar where he can explain what is happening to her. Sky sees the unknown person at a bar who apologizes for letting her meet him at a public place knowing she's a super popular person. He was trying to warn Lewis about this scary deity and tracked down his apartment only to meet him dead. He checked Lewis' phone and figured she was the last person he texted. Sky asks the mysterious person what he was wanted to warn Lewis about. The mysterious person explains that Lewis didn't kill himself but was systematically possessed and murdered by some kind of demon. The demon normally disguises itself to look like smiling people, but only the person that has been infected by it can see it. The demon is like a parasite that infects a host through their mind, and in less than a week it drives the host crazy. It feeds on all the bad things in their head, and when it's done feeding, it forces the host to kill themselves in front of a witness, and then that witness becomes the new host. That was how she got it from Lewis, and before that, it was passed to Lewis by a cop who got it from a doctor that got it from a patient. The mysterious person who later reveals himself as Morris answers that he knows all of these because the strange entity killed his brother. According to his research, he has found a way to stop the entity. The chain can only stop when the infected host dies in some other way outside the entity control. His guess is just like other parasites, without a living host, it has no way to survive. Morris suggests that since he is a nurse, he can stop Sky's heart to kill her, which will deprive the entity of a living host and kill it. Then after that, he will revive her before the entity can finish her itself. Sky rejects this idea and storms off as fans start to recognize and surround her. Sky tries to relax at home by herself, but she sees the entity appear to her as her backup dancers, all heading towards her. They begin to chase Sky around her apartment until they corner her and attack her, with one of them appearing to stick their arm down her throat and she blacks out. We see a flashback that takes us back to the night Sky and her boyfriend Paul had an accident. They both got themselves high on cocaine and they both begins to throw insulting words at each other. Out of anger, Sky grabs the Sterling wheels and turns it off the road, which resulted to their accident. Sky wakes up to find herself in the hospital. She sees her mom, who explained that she was found unconscious in her house and was rushed here. Sky tells her mom that she wants to cancel the tour because she's not in her right mind, but her mom disagrees, saying that if she cancels this one just like she did for the last one, it will be the end of their career and the record label will sell them for millions. Sky is pissed off because the money is only what her mom cares about and doesn't give a damn about her. The entity appears before Sky as Elizabeth, making her punch the mirror in the room and stab herself repeatedly, even plugging her eyes out. Sky tries to run away only to see her clothes stained with blood with a shard of glass in her hand. She sees her mom's body lying on the floor and realizes that the entity had just made her kill her mother. Joshua tries to enter the room, but Sky sends him a message so she can escape. Just as she's escaping, Joshua, who returns from the message, sees the blood stain on her and starts to alert all the doctors. Doctors and guards try to help Sky, but she steals a guard's gun and runs away. On the road, Sky runs into Gemma and forces her driver at gunpoint to give up the car so she can go find Morris. Gemma begs to follow her, but on their way, the real Gemma contacts Sky, and Sky realizes that it was the entity who has been posing as Gemma the last few days. Sky repeatedly says to herself that she's in control, and the entity suddenly goes away, and she takes control of the car and manages to get away to safety. Sky goes to see Morris at an abandoned Pizza Hut to go into the freezer so she won't suffer permanent brain damage just after he stops her heart and kills the entity. As the process begins, Morris leaves the freezer and the entity shows up. It attacks Sky, and as it places its hands inside her mouth and begins to force her to smile, Sky bites its thumbs off and grabs a syringe that is supposed to knock her out and impales it inside her neck. Unfortunately, this doesn't stop the entity, and the entity reveals to her that everything she had seen so far is not real. After a while, Sky finds herself on stage on the first show of her tour. Elizabeth is still alive and in the crowd with Joshua and Darius and thousands of fans. Sky sees the entity coming out of a kind of shell of her own body, revealing its terrifying face and gigantic body before it crawls into Sky's mouth. She collapses in front of the fans before rising to her feet and smiling. She then proceeds to smash her head in with her microphone until it goes through her eye, all while her horrified fans can only watch. And that was how the movie ended. Thank you for watching, guys. If you love movies, please subscribe to this channel and keep watching. Bye.